Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ruck Up Buttercup. It's a girl chat, as you can tell, and we are talking about stereotypes. So we have a whole list. Ashley's going to kind of lead us through the conversation of what we deal with as military spouses and the stereotypes that people have about us.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the stereotypes and what that reality is really like. So the first one we're going to talk about, and this one's going to be kind of talked about, I think, throughout the entire episode because we're going to nitpick on a couple of different myths, but this one specifically, we hear this all the time. If you're a military family marriage, if you're married, it's failed to doom. Like military
And
relationships typically don't last. Okay. So we hear that myth all the time. And I mean, in reality, yeah, they're more likely to fail. I did look up a couple statistics for this. And so, because I was kind of curious on what that statistic would be. So the statistics is so it does occur slightly more, anywhere between 3 to 3.6% annually compared to our civilian counterparts, which is only 2.7, 2.9. So it's not really that big of a difference. I think it's just slightly more because we have bigger stressors that are in
yeah, I
our
was gonna say I
life.
would be curious to see what a police officer or a firefighter I feel like their statistics would be very similar too,
I
just because
think so
there's so
too.
much extra stressors that and
Yeah, I
shift
think
work and
I think anything that has that like extra stress on a relationship or any job that's going to have a spouse away for a long period of time is going to cause that. Like, I mean, I was looking to statistics and it does say enlisted members have a higher divorce rate. I think that's because a lot of us enlisted spouses, families get married really young compared to
Mhm.
our counterparts for officers. We're getting married during college time frame, a lot of us are, and we're not experiencing everyday life things like our counterparts who have gone through college and they're doing a couple different things. But I think that's the same regardless. I think anyone who gets married too young has the potential of not making it. And that's just for so many reasons. We grow as human beings all the time. We're not the same people we are when we were 18, 19, 20s. But that doesn't mean that you're doomed to fail because I have known so many amazing couples who are high school sweethearts, who do survive and who have had long-standing relationships and marriages. So like I think it's just the only difference between being a military marriage and our counterparts is we just have those added stress in there, and sometimes people just can't cope with that. They just cannot look past that, cannot look towards the end of the lights. Yeah, they just don't wanna have any part of that lifestyle anymore, and
Yeah, there
that's
there is just so many things, and we talk about deployments, but that's not the only thing.
no.
Even my husband's going to be working shifts, the split shifts where they have basically you work 12 hours and I know that we fight more when he's on night shift. Like I'm not looking forward to the fact that he's going to have nights where he's going to have to work 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. because it leaves me with bedtimes, it leaves me with dinner, it leaves me with the morning time. There's
The
just so
mental
much more.
strain.
And then as homeschool families, he's home all day trying to sleep while we're still trying to do life. Like there's still so many other things that we have to do. So there are so many things that are don't calculate into that. And that's why I was thinking I think firefighters are that same kind of shift work where even just that alone is so hard. And I know that like I
The
said, we
mental
fight
load,
more
yeah.
during those times because I'm like, you're not helping, you're not doing anything because you're on this weird shift that's not anything like the rest of our life. And that's just a lot, and a lot of spouses don't handle that as well. Like I know that we just have worked through things, and that's why we're where we're at. But that isn't going to be the case for young spouses. If Dustin had been on
No.
these kind of shifts when we first got married, I don't. I it would be really hard to get through that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think, like, you nailed it, like, that mental load plays such a role in a relationship. As spouses, we do tend to carry a lot on our shoulders. Whether our spouse thinks so or not, like, we are literally holding down the fort. We are taking care of the kids, we're taking care of the home, we're taking care of ourselves, all while not having that extra pair of hands, and so there are a lot of spouses out there who are like, I feel like you like they have it in their brain that they have a second pair of hands, so it just feels more of a burden because they don't in essence, like their spouse is gone for training, things like that. And so they're, as soon as that spouse comes home, and they don't jump in and try to do all the things to help, it can just be so mentally draining. And the same thing with our counterparts, our spouses, like their mental load, PTSD, mental health problems that they experience throughout their service has, I mean, for me specifically, like there has been times where Jeremy's PTSD where I was just like, I don't know. And this was well before kids. This was well before he kind of found coping mechanisms and stuff like that. And I was like, this is just so hard. He's angry all the time. He is nitpicking every single thing just to cause a fight. And it was just because he just didn't have a coping mechanism to let out what he needed to let out from just PTSD and things like that. And so it was one of those things where I think you kind of have to pull all that apart and look at like what's really the problem and then figuring it out. But I mean, we preach this. Communication is so important to maintain a healthy military relationship, whether it's with another spouse, relationship with your spouse. Communication is so important, and there's so many things that you can do if you feel like you are not connecting at. I mean, the chaplains, whether you are a religious faith or not, are great resources to reach out to. They can help with any type of situation. They can help navigate better communication styles. They can help you determine if you truly need to work on your love language, like if you believe that in that or not. I think it's a really great way to understand how people experience love, what makes them feel loved. And so even if you don't want to speak to a chaplain, you could probably find that book super
They
easy.
have a military edition that's like very specific also, so
and and as silly as it sounds, it is so important to understand your partner's.
because I think that's where a lot of people don't get it right. Is they're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, well, my love language is this," and so they treat their spouse the way they want to
the
be
same
treated,
way.
and that's not
Mhm.
always right. That's not always
And
gonna
those
be.
change, like my love languages have changed throughout the years. And
Mhm.
so like having those conversations of, hey, I know I told you in the past that this makes me feel loved, but I now need this, and having those conversations on a regular basis of what works for you and what works for you, what works for your spouse, and coming together and being like, okay, I will do this and you can do this and we can work together as a team is so unbelievably important. And we all have to do this. Like, don't like, I mean, I'll be married for 15 years in a month, and we just had this conversation 2 months ago. Like, we are constantly having to have this conversation. We've been together for over 20 years, which is blowing my mind. But we continuously have these discussions, and it's the only way that we have survived this long. I mean, there has been talk of divorce in the past. There has been talk of, I think I'm better off just going and doing things on my own from both sides. And so I think that if you don't have those conversations and you just make your mind up and you don't take the steps to have that communication, you are likely to be
Yeah.
doomed to fail.
And like you were saying, it changes a lot. And I think as military spouses, our seasons change a lot too. So like every single time I move, I am a different person. I have different things that we're going to be doing, like specifically as our homeschool. Like our homeschool groups look very different in different communities and like expectations from like what I would need to do in order to be part of that group. So my in each season like that, I'm going to be like, "Hey, this duty station, I have a lot more responsibilities, or I'm taking on more responsibilities with deployed love. I need this more. I need you to help more. I need gifts more, where I'm just feeling like I'm stuck at home. It would be nice if you brought me coffee on your way home from work," kind of thing. Like there's going to be points
Mhm.
in each season that it changes. And I think our seasons change more often. I feel like as our
Yes.
counterparts on the civilian side may live in the same house, may live in the same, like join the same communities, do the same things for years on end, where sometimes like for us it was 6 months and now we have to shift into a different like routine
That's
and
so
things look so
important to say.
different.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that is such an important like point because our life changes so often that we are growing and changing along with it. And having, if you're at like a place where, you absolutely loved your last installation. Like say you were stationed in Hawaii and it was the very best time you've ever had. And then you go to this other installation and it's just the feels are just so depressing, so heavy on you, that takes a toll. And especially if you're a spouse who's not working and your service member is so busy working, okay? When you are a spouse who's put into a position where you're not doing that, you're staying at home for whatever reason it may be, it can be such a strain that there could be resentment coming in. There can be, I mean, depression I think is a really big thing that affects military spouses, whether it's seasonal depression or just depression that can kind of continues and you have your ups and downs. But it's so hard to make those changes so often.
And I think also like stay-at-home spouses also get work envy. Like, hey, you get to go
Yeah.
to work. Like, I'd trade you in a
Yes.
heartbeat. And you hear that all the time. It's like you couldn't do half the, you would hate it if you had to switch with me.
Yep. And we're gonna talk a little bit more on that here in a little bit. So I don't want to go too deep into that because I do think that is such an important thing, and there's a lot on that. But I kind of want to, since we're talking about marriages dooming, another myth is infidelity or inability. So the myth is the service member is going to cheat or the spouse is going to cheat no matter what. Like none of them is going to do it. It doesn't matter what. And it exists everywhere, y'all. Like it's not just the military.
If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. It doesn't matter what the job is.
If your spouse doesn't respect you enough, and there's going to be signs. There'll be signs that if your spouse doesn't respect you enough to be respectful in the manner of sleeping around, flirting, whatever the case may be, that marriage will be doomed. Like no matter, it doesn't matter if they are a civilian or a service member, it will happen. I do think that there potentially could be incidences where it's more likely to happen in the military just because of long times away. Service members are lonely, spouses are lonely. They are doing things, outside of the scope of people having the eyes on them of mutual people. Yeah, does it happen? Absolutely. But it's not because they're a service member. And I hate this. I hate this stereotype. Like this one is one that like.
And I think it's another one that falls back on we got married really young. So there's a lot of soldiers who, like military members, who also just never had anything beyond that. And then they're surrounded by other people. So like they're constantly in contact.
Single guys. You're surrounded by a bunch of single people. There's more single soldiers than there are married soldiers.
There's a lot of peer pressure. I know when we were younger, that was a lot of the issue. It wasn't like he was going out to cheat on me, but there were things that I wasn't comfortable with, like going to strip clubs and stuff. I'm like, but all his friends were doing it, and he would want to go because that's what they were doing. And it's not like he was sleeping with the strippers. Like, I get that. But, like, at the same time, it's like you have to put up boundaries, and you have to decide where those boundaries are.
Exactly.
As we got older, I didn't care about the strip club. I don't care. He could go right now. I don't give a, like, whatever. But at the different ages, you have to figure out where that boundary is for you because you're going to be comfortable or not comfortable with different situations.
The service member, like, if your service member is lying or hiding things, one, they know that it's wrong. And two, the same thing. Like, we had a bunch of single soldiers with, Jeremy, and it was just like, well, can I be DD so I can go with you guys? And it wasn't because I didn't trust my husband. It was just like, wanting to make sure none of them got in trouble because some of them were married and some were not. And they were like, yes, now we have a DD so we can all just drink. It was one of those things where there are factors for, if you're constantly fighting and things like if you're not having a healthy relationship at home, anyone's going to go find something to do, whether it's a spouse or the service member. You have to have that communication. You have to set those boundaries. You have to have, this isn't right or wrong. And I don't know if I don't personally think it's married young or not. I think it's personality disorders, whether they're narcissistic or anything like that. And they're just like, oh, I won't get caught or whatever the case may be. I just think that people are going to do what they want to do, and a lot of them are going to do it when they don't think there's going to be any consequences.
Soon for a Coldplay joke.
Yeah, the Coldplay, right? I was thinking that too.
That is so funny. I have been dying about all that. Like, and here's the thing, like, it's gonna come out eventually. Like, I don't.
You will get caught,
no matter if you are going to choose to be not faithful to your partner, whether it's if you think it's harmless because you're just chatting, or if you've gone all the steps through, it's going to come back and bite you. And I truly do think it's more of individuals who are, one, just not happy in their marriage, and they're never going to be happy in their marriage, and they're going to go find something different. And I hate that for spouses, especially like, families who've been together for a long time, and they don't take the time to have all the communication, like whether it's therapy or reconnecting or planning dates or anything like that. Like, there's so many things you can go and do. But then there's individuals like my sister's husband, ex-husband, who literally thought he could do no wrong, got another woman pregnant while married. He wasn't the person. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault that his wife wasn't giving him attention, and that's not the case. Like, she had dinner made every single night. She did whatever he wanted to do. Very controlling individual. So I just think we see it more because there's military spouses out there who have nothing better to do but than to talk about it on social media. Our counterparts don't have. There's whole groups. We're the only individuals who have these groups out there and who are okay with bashing and pulling people through the mud and things like that. And it's such a horrible thing to say, but I think the only reason we have that is because we have these groups. Like, you don't see these groups in any other job field. Maybe you'll have a lineman support group. Maybe you'll have a police officer support group, a fireman police support group, but you're not going to have hundreds like we have as military spouses. And I think that's just why we visually see it so often. So we think that it happens more often than it does. But most of the people I've probably only dealt with two infidelity, not myself, but I've known of 2 infidelity cases within our military career. And yeah, they were big ones. They were nasty ones. They were not good ones. But we've been in the service. My husband's been in the service for 18 years. And those are the only 2 that I can state that they definitely did no-nos.
I owned a bar, so I know of way more than 2. But
it happens.
I'm like, my tip jar is open for, alibis. But but no, so the married young thing, my first marriage, I was married at 18. I actually, thinking back the other day, I got married because I graduated high school early. I got married before my friends in the class that I was supposed to graduate with actually even graduated high school. And I was living on the military base with my own house, my own car, all that stuff before my friends were even graduating high school. He was in Iraq, and I was like 2 months from shipping off to base or OSIT myself. And I was like, looking back, that sounds so weird. But back then I was like, whatever.
Every person has to do what's best with them. And this kind of goes into our next myth. People just get married for the benefits. And I can confirm and say that there are probably people out there who do this.
Well, I think some of us even that have stayed married for a long time originally was semi for the benefits, because like Dustin and I, we were dating, but I lived in Colorado and he lived in Hawaii. Logistically, that didn't work. So obviously we moved quicker in our relationship into being married because I wanted to be there. That's a long distance to try to have a normal relationship. He was about to deploy, and that you could look at that as we married for the benefits because we did. We got housing. I got to move there.
We got married before we should have because of we wanted to be able to move in.
It wasn't for the benefits of we didn't like each other. We knew that we also were going in that direction. That was the ultimate direction for us. So while yes, we did move really quickly and it probably was unnecessary, it was necessary because I knew that we needed to be together. I knew that, especially with deployment coming up, that I needed to be around people that got it and had the support system for it. And so, yes, I guess so. I think so to some extent we do, but not in the way that people talk about.
I think so. And I think that's that stereotype really does undermine the real commitment that people have together. And, we had already planned a wedding. We postponed it because of family health issues, but we decided that we were still going to get married because we didn't want to wait the year that we had discussed about having the wedding to not be able to just move on with our lives, like not to go ahead and have, a home and everything like that. Every branch is different, but specifically for the Army, they have to be a certain rank or married to live outside of the barracks. And that just, same thing. It just wasn't feasible for like me to continue to live at home and him in the barracks. So it was just like, let's get married so we can get an apartment and things like that. But I have met individuals who have been married solely for benefit purposes. And now that is illegal. So, a lot of people will not come out and say that, but there are people who do get married so that individual can have TRICARE and they, all that kind of stuff. There is no romantic portion to it. And so that I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're cheating, but they're like, yeah, but they're not really actually married. But that's very far true. I do think that conception of is you only got married so you can live outside of the barracks or to have insurance and things like
And
that.
maybe that's kind of why we see more divorces. Maybe it is that
Maybe.
two single soldiers get married because they get the benefits of it. And then once they are a different rank or whatever and they decide they're comfortable or they can live on their own,
But they're
then
ready to move on with their life and actually have
Yeah.
a relationship with someone and get married to someone who wants to have that. I think there is so many things to that. But I mean, here's the deal, y'all. Even if someone say like, I know this is not my long-term partner. We had a kid, we have TRICARE, they need health insurance, things like that. I mean, we see a lot of people join the military just because it has a guaranteed health care. Is that health care the best? Not necessarily. Here, straight up here, military benefits are not that great, y'all. Like, it's nice that you have them and you're not having to pay extra out of pocket from another paycheck. But there are so much red tape and hurdles that military families have to jump through just to get things taken care of. So,
and then making Tri-West or Texas Tri-West
so much.
So, well, the VA is also Tri-West. So my claims, if they're, because I have VA insurance, but I also have my husband's Tri-West now, and they keep sending it to the wrong side, and I'm like,
there is so much red tape and so many hurdles that military families have to jump through. Our insurance doesn't cover everything, so a lot of military spouses go undiagnosed. They go without procedures. They go without a lot of things.
Just unfortunately, though, being on the other side of this, it's just the healthcare in America, to be quite honest. It's all
That's true too.
such a mess.
But it's more along the lines of like, if someone is joining the service only because, or marrying for the benefits, they soon learn that it's not that great and it's not any different. It is nice to know that, you can go to the emergency room and not have to worry about a bill. Sometimes you have to go through multiple calls and fix it and all that kind of stuff. But in the end of the day, this myth itself is just one of those that is just kind of funny to laugh about because it's not true. Yeah, you're going to see that happen, but it's in any
and you
insurance.
think about beyond health insurance, like the housing.
No.
There's a couple bases that I would live on base. There's some that are like really nice. Like we were looking at White Sands over here, like great. However, most of them you really don't want to make that decision. So
and just the stress of like moving consistently and having your service member gone all the time and not having the support of extra hands or all the things, like it doesn't outweigh the bad. Like, it's kind of a balance between the two, I think. Like, yeah, we have healthcare, we have the option of living on base where we don't have to pay rent, but at the end of the day, like, it could come with mold issues and things not getting fixed on time. Like, it's like it's one of those, like, you have to kind of like pick your battles and pick which aspect that you want out of it. I would never live on base. Like, Jeremy straight refuses, like, we'll never live on base. I think the only time we'll ever live on base is if we go to the Sergeant Major's Academy. And that is like the only time we'll ever live on military installation. My parents were like that growing up too. The only time we lived on base was when we lived for 6 months at Fort Benning, and that was it. And I think that, but not everyone can afford that. And I think that goes right into our next myth is military families are financially secure. That is a load of baloney, y'all. Load of baloney. Now, granted, here, yes, you can budget, but at the end of the day, frequent moves, job instability for spouses, no. Like the housing market, let's talk about the housing market. The housing market, the BAH that families are assigned, the way they determine BAH is they take the zip code right outside the gates, okay? Which is 9 out of 10 times the poorest parts
Like the
of the town.
ghetto, yeah.
Slums. And they took the average rental costs for those homes, and that is the cost that they come up with the BAH.
Fort Hood is outrageously, horribly low.
It is. So, like, when you're looking, so, like, for instance, and this is just difference. Like, you know, we're on a special duty assignment, and they took the BAH from Roanoke. Roanoke is an hour away, y'all, from where we're located. And that is how they determined our BAH. The housing here is $500 to $600 more than what it is in Roanoke.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's like they expect you to just live out there, but we are not stupid. Like nobody wants to live in those apartments right outside base. Like that's where shootings happen.
Half of the places are on like the ban list. Like half of those areas are like you are not allowed to live in those areas. And
I mean, hello, it's Rentier.
Like I can picture all the bases, like right outside of every base that we've lived at is no way.
Oh, and so then you're looking further outside. So then families come down to either having to commute really far because they're having to go out further from the installation to find cheaper housing because they can't afford the better school districts, or they're going to the better school districts. They're going to the higher end areas, and they're putting all their money into a house. And that is something that each family has to make that decision on. Do they want to have the good school systems? Do they want to have, you know, the house that fits their needs and things like that and pay more? Or are they going to go with something that's smaller and whatever the case may be? Like, we've been in it for 15 years, and that is literally our struggle every single time we move. Okay? If you're renting, or even if you're buying, you go to a new location. All utilities require stupid amount of deposits.
Well,
like
just your rental house, the deposit, like that's not
you have to make
included in
three times as much, and you have to have like well, I just moved here.
Yep.
Unless you're like, yeah, the service member, you have a steady income, but like if you're not military moving anywhere, I don't know how people do it. They have to have the job lined up and live in a hotel for 3 months or something?
Head deposit. Or like if you're looking at getting on-base housing, and on-base housing has a long wait list, like you have families who are spending way more than they need to because they're staying in hotels for long periods of times and things like that. Like for Benning, I've been seeing this post nonstop. Drill gets priority. So the families who are coming in for drill are the ones that get housing first. So there's people who are showing up in a week or two who are still 6 to 9 weeks out of getting a house.
Moving
and
is
they're
like
so 5 months.
I can say just having moved, like Dustin's contract, they were like, oh, okay, well, you need to be here. Your start date is in 2 weeks, which is insane, right? And then they're like, well, how the moving company will get a hold of you for how the financing and how all that's going to go. Okay, great. We were in our house for over a week, our new house, before they got in contact with us. And they're like, well, I don't know if they'll back pay those expenses, because it's like, how are we supposed to be here if you hadn't gotten in contact with us? Like, we had to be here in 2 weeks, and you didn't help us get a moving truck scheduled. You didn't help us get hotels. Like, we had to do it, or he would not be here to work. And it's just crazy because it's like that expenses just come out of your pocket. And then they're like, well, maybe we'll reimburse, but you should have done it with us. It's like, what do you mean?
Well, and even coming from like a low income area to a high income area. So like, for instance, like going from like, I don't know, let's say Fort Campbell to J Bear, Alaska, or Hawaii, where the cost of living in every aspect is just so much more, groceries and everything like that. Like your budget there isn't necessarily going to work in a new location. And it's important to say, like, you should live within your means. So like if you're going out to dinner 2 to 3 times a week, or if you are buying designer clothing or things like that, which I'm not saying don't treat yourself, because I'm a firm believer that you should treat yourself. You guys work hard. You should be able to go on a date night or whatever the case may be. But if it's something where you're doing multiple times a week, but then you're complaining that you are living paycheck to paycheck, then you do need to sit down and reevaluate your budget and your finances. I've actually seen quite a few people talk about this on TikTok recently, and I was getting really irritated because there was one spouse specifically who was stating, like, you know, and this is like a baby spouse, like an E4, stay at home mom, like doesn't do that. And she's like, we live perfectly comfortable. And I'm like, okay, you're living on base housing. You have food stamps. You have all these things. So yeah, you have that. Not everybody qualifies for all these things. Which if you're listening, and you're a young military family, you qualify for food stamps, and I highly encourage you to go get on it. Like, use them. Don't feel bad about it, because the military doesn't pay a lot. It doesn't. And even though we have those benefits of housing and TRICARE and things like that, if you can get assistance in helping and getting those staples, milk, all that kind of stuff for your family, and you qualify for it, I say use it.
Do it.
You know, I definitely think that I wish I hadn't been so like clutch my pearls, like, oh my God, I would never use it. Like, we can afford milk. It would have been so much better if we could have had, because there was times where I'm just like, I can't afford to get fruit for my kids because fruit is so expensive. And that was one of the only things that my kids would eat as babies. So I definitely think that, you know, if you are able to qualify for those, go for it.
And look at that
And
at
then,
each installation. So like even if like say in Texas where the income is lower, right? You may not qualify for it, but you move to Alaska, you may qualify for it because now you're making a whole lot less. And so then it's like make sure you're looking every time you move too, because that could change a lot.
and there's so many resources out there. I mean, like I said, like you can connect with, if you're like, I don't want to do that, but you find yourself in a situation where you're like, you know, it's a long pay period. We all hate those long pay periods when
We're
it's
in one
over
right now.
3 weeks. And yeah, like if you're in that period where like I just need $50 to get me some few staples, which $50 nowadays goes nowhere. We all know that.
Ramen
Go
noodles.
talk
Oh,
to your chaplain. Go talk to your
Yeah.
chaplain. Go, because they have money set aside. They have food pantries that if they find out, they would rather know a family is struggling to get them the assistance than to see you guys wasting. Also, if you need help, reach out, because there will be someone who can be like, hey, I have, you know, an extra set of toilet paper. I will bring you over a thing of toilet paper if you're out of toilet paper. Or if you need diapers or milk or whatever it is, there's someone out there who genuinely just wants to help. And don't let the people saying like you should have budgeted better. No, because they've all been through it. And if they're saying they've never been through it, they're lying, because the military life, the constant moving, the constant, you know, even if you're a spouse that works too, if you're a dual income family, you still go through periods of time when you're not getting paid as well. And, you know, changing careers, new wardrobe, everything comes into play. And so, ugh, don't let the negative Nancy's like get in your head, friends, because there's always going to be those people who are going to say something negative. Like, I cannot believe you didn't budget. And here's the thing, some of y'all have never even been taught how to budget. Some of us have never been taught how to run a household or anything like that. We kind of just been thrown into the case. And like I said, there are so many resources out there that could help with
there
that. If you're
are.
looking to
Because I
learn
know
how
for
to,
sure Military One Source itself
yeah,
has like a ton
all
of
of it.
budgeting stuff. But we
All
also
sorts
have an
of
episode coming up with finance person who's going to be helping us figure out how to do budgets too. So
and
And ask for help, y'all. Like, if you are truly struggling, you're just like, I cannot understand how we are continuously living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I'll be straight up and honest with you guys. It's not been until like maybe the last 2 to 3 years where I have felt like we've lived paycheck to paycheck. That's not like still being able to go do a couple things outside of that, but like having to really narrow down like what extra things we're going to do.
and that's the economy though too. Like
Yeah,
right now I feel like now we're because we got a different position, it's a little bit different, but we were on a tight budget where it just everything costs so much. And I didn't realize where we were living in Sierra Vista, Fort Huachuca is just really expensive.
yep.
You wouldn't think it is, but then we moved And we went to Dunkin'. So this is the biggest example of like watching where you're living, because we went to Dunkin' and got all four of us a drink for less than it would have cost me and Dustin to get two drinks
Yeah.
in Sierra Vista.
And
And it's like, that's crazy. So like you have to really be careful about that, because I don't think that Huachuca is considered where you would get cost of living, where it should be. Because if you're looking at the comparison, like even just across the state line here, the difference on cost of everything, like that's just the basic thing of coffee, the difference in cost is insanely different. So yeah. And they don't always calculate that. Like that's not something that they're thinking about. Who cares?
No. Well, and again, like, you know, and that's what sucks is like every single time you move, you have to retrain your brain. You have to retrain your habits. You have to
reset your budget.
Your budget, and talk about, like, you know, you were able to afford dance in Taekwondo and anything like that at this installation, but then you move to this installation, you're just like it's triple the price of what you paid at the last place. You were able to go get your nails done for a fraction of the cost, but then now this new place, it's triple the cost. So maybe now you can't go get your nails done. There's a lot of sacrifices and changes that have to happen every single time you move, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
We just went through this because, you know, my husband is retiring soon, and then it's going to be his paychecks will be like my paychecks. The VA only pays us once a month on the 1st. And so I have learned over the years that when I get paid, to whatever my extra money is, split it in half and throw half of that in savings and pay myself on the 15th or however I want to split it up for that month, because otherwise it won't last.
Yeah, and it's a really weird challenge, because that's how the contracts are. We get paid different for every contract. It just depends on how they feel like doing it. So now it's like we were on every other Friday. Now it's like 7 days after the 1st and 7 days after. It's like the most absurd things. But then in Germany, we were getting paid once a month, and you have to be like, okay, well, this is all the money, but this is where the extra expenses come out of the 15th. We had to push that down, and
and that means like setting up a separate bank account, and because like that's what we did. I mean, even military service members can request to be paid all on the 1st. Like, you can request that. I would suggest not doing that unless you are really, really good at budgeting. And I know I know a few families who do it that way, because they have all their bills come out at the beginning of the month, so they would prefer just to do that, because then that tells them how much money they have for the remainder of the year.
That's what we did in Germany, and it once you get into that, it's easier, but it took a lot of learning and a lot of budgeting.
And you can call, a lot of times you can call your companies and be like, hey, this is when my paycheck is. Do we have any wiggle room? Can we move it? Yeah. And I did that with all of mine. I was like, hey, I'm a disabled veteran. Like, I only get paid on the 1st. Can I move everything as close to the 1st as I can, so that I can just get it all paid? And I still pay everything on the 1st, whether it's due or not, because I'd rather get done and I know exactly how much I have. But I've been a disabled veteran for that long. He's not used to having one paycheck. So I was like, okay, well, our budget that we're doing right now isn't going to work. We have to make a whole new spreadsheet for getting all the money. We're going to have a separate bank account that's only for the bills. We're going to put this amount over there and not touch it. And this is how much, even if the bills are lower than that, this is exactly how much is going over there, so that we start building a buffer. And we sat down one weekend, and it took us the whole weekend going through and being like, okay, is everything that we can think of accounted for? Like, yes, Amazon only comes out once a year, but is it stuck in there somewhere? Like, thinking of everything that you pay. And I mean, I think that comes with time, over time. Like, I do feel like young military spouses, or not just the spouses, but young military members as well, they don't know. This is probably the first time they're earning money.
And here's the thing: if you were not taught this at any
point, God forbid you get a bonus.
Oh yeah, I know bonuses are always just like, you would think
tax returns, all that stuff just makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, like filing a tax return. Some of these people probably have never done that.
No, and I think
one source for that.
That should be. I have always said this. Like, I think that they need to bring back home ec or some form of it.
My aunt
taught how to write a check, how to budget, how to make financial investments, how to do all these things. Because even as someone who's almost 40, I'm still like,
That's funny because I just bought those
what do
books
I need
for
to
my
do?
kids
Like,
to learn this
I
year for
don't know.
homeschool.
I'm buying my first home, and I'm just like,
It's scary.
I'm like, what? Like, huh? Like, what do you mean? Like, but with this percentage and this, I'm like, I am kind of just like, I literally have been Googling everything because I'm like, I have no clue. And I'm also like too proud to call my mom and be like, Mom, what does this mean? Because I'm almost 40.
Then
And
just call us.
I know. Well, it's fine. It's just a new experience, and there's so many different things that are out there, and and military members start so young. I mean, most of our service members are straight out of high school, unless they're an officer, and they're still babies. They're still
They are.
babies coming in. So, I mean, unless you're someone who's joining later in life, which I feel like we're seeing a lot more of. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've been seeing a lot more later in life.
There are, but it's also not a time of war anymore, so I feel like that's kind of normal.
Yeah, well,
now.
and then coming in because they're probably coming in for the benefits, so that's where I
Yeah.
can see that coming in. But it's so crazy, and so let's dive into the next myth, which we talk a lot about this on the podcast. It's military spouses don't work or have ambition. Okay, guys, listen clearly. Listen clearly. If you're a military spouse listening, you are amazing. Military spouses are some of the most ambitious entrepreneurs, volunteers, hardest working people I have ever met in my entire life. Yes, there are spouses out there who stay home, and 9 out of 10 times it's for a very good reason. One, it's none of your business if that spouse is staying home.
And do you know how much childcare is? Holy
Mind
crap.
your own. If that service member and that spouse has had the conversations that that family unit has agreed to, that they can stay home and that works for their family, it works for their family. You are not a part
The
of that family.
reality is, it is
Butt out.
almost essential for most
It
family members
is.
to have a spouse that stays home, whether they work from home or stay at home. That's their choice. But it's almost essential in
so
most
hard.
positions where they're deploying. There's no way.
It's so hard. It's
Yeah.
so hard having a career as a military spouse. Not saying that it can't be done, because it can be done, but there is going to be a lot of sacrifices when it comes to that, whether that is geobatching, whether that is you're paying majority of your paycheck to childcare. The sacrifices that military spouses make to accommodate service life is next to none. And that's where you probably hear that dependent status of like, I serve too type of like mentality, because I mean, I'm not going to be the person that says I wear my husband's break. I'm an E8 too. No, but I have put in just as much time and effort as a military spouse into the military community, whether that is through my volunteering, whether that is through holding down the fort, or whatever the case may be. They are doing things that no other spouse in any other job has to do. I mean, I've lost a job. We've talked about this on the podcast because my service member could not take off work because we had a sick child. I was the one that had to sacrifice my job in order to take care of our children because my husband could not do that.
And in my case, I'm the rarity where, yes, all the outside sees is, oh, she stays at home with the kids. Little do they know, my check, I still get one.
Yeah.
I'm just that broken, unfortunately. Like, I'm at a point where I'm rated from the VA as unemployable. So I can't even, like, even if I wanted to get a job, it has to be so little pay that I don't even think those jobs, I mean,
exist. No, you would have to.
really.
You in essence would be having to volunteer your time to be working, and then like just the thought process of every single time you move. Okay, so like let's talk about my Alaska job. So when I was in Alaska, it took me probably 2 to 3 months to find the job. And this was me applying to anything and everything, y'all. I have a bachelor's degree. Have I worked in my field? No, I have not. Now, my Alaska job was the closest thing to public health. I did work in health behavioral sector. And so I worked there. promoted. Ended up getting promoted to a operational manager position. And then guess what? Good old Army came watching, and hey, you're leaving a year earlier than we told you were going to be leaving. So then me having to go tell my job after only being there for 6 months, hey, I'm really sorry. Like 6 months into my new position, I have to leave. And then putting that down. And then when we moved, taking me like 4 months to find a job, going to a employment office and working like temp jobs and things like that, and only finding a job because my daddy knew one of the operation managers there, because they kept on looking at my resume and we're like, ooh, this girl only has like experience, like she has like, you know, only 2 years here and 2 years there, and like, it looks like she Googled her. I literally had someone say, it looked like you Googled jobs and put it on a resume. I'm not even kidding, y'all. Like, it looks like that. And so you have people who are like, should I put that on my military spouse to explain my work history? And you'll have people who say, no, don't do that. And at that point in time, it could not get you a job and it could get you a job. It just depends on that hiring person. And so it's so hard. Do I dislike my job experiences? No, I really enjoyed the variety of the jobs I've had throughout the years. But am I very thankful that I have a full-time work at home job? Yes, because but I'm also, because I don't work, I work from home.
Yeah, but that factor comes in because you had talked about moving to Italy, and
Yep.
companies can't sponsor
Nope.
you to continue to work overseas a lot of the time. So that's another factor. Or like we have on the list is licensing. Like I
Yeah.
had a business in Arizona, but do I want to go through the effort of getting it all started back up over here? I don't know.
Especially if you're a spouse who's like, who has to have a licensure to do the work. So a hairdresser, cosmetologist,
Or
a
if you own
lawyer,
your
a
own
teacher.
business, like any small business,
Yep.
you have to re-register every single place you move.
And you don't get help with those costs. You don't get help
No.
with the covering the cost of all that. And so
And
that's
some
just
of them are
another
crazy. Like
thing.
Arizona was $250 to just get a small business license. It's like,
No.
I'm not going to make that money back up for months. Like, yeah. So those things are not transferable. And so you just get to the point where, at least as a seasoned spouse, where I'm like, what is the point? I might as well
Yeah.
finish homeschooling my kids, stay home until they're done, and then maybe I'll get a job because my life will be more flexible. But with kids, it's really hard. Like you talked about, like they get sick. Who's
It's
taking
on
care of that
you.
child? Yeah.
Especially like Astrid had to have that emergency surgery last year, and I mean they cut through her ab muscles. She still to this day has problems because of like ab pain, because she literally has a tube going through her ab muscle that's never going to heal. So it's like she's ripping a muscle.
It's foreign
Every
body.
time
Your
you
body's
sit
never
down.
going to, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and it just comes down to like the whoever the primary parent, whether you are a female spouse or a male spouse, or whoever that primary parent is who's staying home, that falls, everything falls, all the doctor's appointments, all of the
yeah,
school activities, all the extracurricular, all of the, everything falls onto that primary parent. And it's just the reality. It's the reality of military life. As much as you may, I mean, there may be like those diamonds in the rough where it's a service member and they come in and they're just gun-ho, but not every MOS is the same. They don't have the same schedule. They
Not
don't
every
have the same
command.
command.
Like we've
Every
heard
command,
dual stories of dual
if you have
spouses
a
multiple
single
times. They're
commander,
completely different.
they have no idea.
yeah.
Like you're seeing that more and more, especially like nowadays, because older people are coming in. But the command teams are single,
Yeah, most of them are.
and
A lot.
so they don't have extra things like spouses, sick kids, all that stuff. But then you'll get a group that you have a commander and a first sergeant that are married and have kids, and they understand. And they're like, yeah,
And
just
there's
have your
sometimes
phone.
where they don't understand. I mean, it genuinely
Or
just
they
falls
don't.
on the
Yeah,
command.
because sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, I've been around command teams where they've all been married with kids, and I'm just like, you what?
and
But
they
they're
have
still
no
like
sense
stuck in
of
their
reality.
gender roles and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes into our next myth, which is spouses have all the support they need. Here's the deal, y'all. Here's the reality of it.
Only if you found it.
Support systems vary, and only if you find it. There are so many resources out there, but unless those spouses are using those resources, they're not going to have that support. And I was actually talking to Courtney a while ago, and she's just like, I just don't think I'm going to survive Benny. She's like, and it's because she was at Bragg for so long. She had a great support system at Bragg. I think the only thing that she's holding on is that I'm coming to Benny here in a month. And she's like, I think that's the only thing that's going to like keep me sane here. She goes, they just don't understand, like, you know, the people I've connected with just haven't really understand like the way that I've been living my life right now, and kind of like how we've been doing it, just because like we've had to do it for so long because of the constant rotations and the constant like rapid deployments and things like that. And I was like, I get that. But like Laura said, like they only have the support if they have it. And at the best of times, unless you have like your ride or die person, that support system is not always foundational, and it's not always going to be there. And you're going to have spouses who have stopped making friends because they hate the feeling of having to have friends leave. You're going to have spouses who want nothing to do with other spouses because they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want anything to do with FRG or anything like that, because we've talked about that so many times. And you have to just connect yourself. You have to plug yourself in somewhere. Find the group that fits with you. If you are heavy into reading, find a group that likes to read. If you're a homeschooling group, find a homeschooling group to connect with. If you are a dog mom, and that's it, just find somebody to connect with that you can do it. I always kind of encourage spouses to find a military spouse outside of their unit, because then you don't necessarily will be going through the same things at the same time, but you understand what's happening at the same time, if that makes sense.
And we were talking, my husband and I were talking about this the other day, because we've been moving my dad into assisted living, and we needed help. Like, I can't lift a lot of furniture. Like, I just can't. I want to, like I used to be able to, but I just know myself. I can't. Like, it's impossible. And he was like, do we have anybody that'll help? And immediately, two of my friends, when they heard that, you know, my dad was finally agreeing to move to assisted living, one of my friends was one of my childhood best friends. He lives an hour north of our hometown. He was like, hey, tell me what time. And he came down 2 weekends in a row to help us move him the first weekend, and then the second weekend to clear out my dad's old apartment. And then we had my best friend down here. Her and her husband drove from, you know, the Fort Hood area 2 hours away to where my dad lives, just to help us clean out stuff, knowing that it was going to be mostly trash that we were throwing away. My best friend cleaned out my dad's refrigerator, which was a science experiment in and of itself. With like no questions asked. I didn't even realize she had done it until I opened it and realized that it was already cleaned out, and, you know, somebody had already done it, and it was her. And it was like, yeah, one of them is from my childhood, but one of them drove 2 hours.
Yeah. And you're going to find those people. And I think one of the biggest things is to keep in mind and have grace with other people, because one, mental health and burnouts can often be invisible. And if we're all military spouses, and if your only group and your only support system is military spouses, don't necessarily take it to the faint of heart that person's not there to help, to support you. They could be going through their own trauma, but at the same time, life is too short to surround yourself with people who are there only for your help and not to return it. That took me a really long time to learn. That I was like, you know, the more people I have, the more support I'll have, and that's not the case. If you find your people and you find a group, it's a relationship, and you have to cultivate it. You have to work on it. You can't just expect someone to come help you in your time of need and not return that in the favor. And I think there are spouses out there who just kind of be like, I'm in trouble, I need help right away. But then they're also very recluse and stay home, and not provide that support and fold. And that could just be because mental health, it could be burnout, it could be a lot of different things. And so you have to kind of just, again, this is one of those things where it's a constant change. You know, every time you change, you're making new friends and new support system. I mean, if someone called me like and said, "Hey, I need support," I'm going to try my very best to support them in any way I can. If I can't physically make it, I'm going to try to see if I can find someone who can, or I'm going to, you know, try to find support in some way. But, you know, just remember, like, everybody may not be able to just drop what they're doing to come over and help. And there's so many reasons for that. And so I think that's one of the struggles for being a military spouse, is that there are people who want to help, but like they just physically can't or mentally can't, or a combination of both. Um, but at the same time, like, you do not have to be friends with somebody just to be friends with them, just to have that support system in place. Like, if that's not a true support system. Um, like if Sabrina called me and say, "Hey, I don't know, can you take the kids for a week because I just need a mental break?" I'd be like, "Yeah, they can come over for a week." Like, that's not a big deal, because I know that if I needed something from her, I know that she would do her very best to support that in whatever way she could. Even if she said, "Hey, I can't take them for a week, but I can at least take them for 2 days." Like, I know that there is a give or take in that relationship, but I know that I have been friends with spouses before where that isn't there. Like, there's definitely that spouse who is only friends with someone to use them, and you can kind of tell who those are. And so you just kind of have to be cautious and build that community up to where it will support you in times of need. But just know that everyone goes through different things, so that support could crumble at any time.
And realize that if you have two or three like solid, if you call them, they're going to help no matter like however they can, beats having 15 people that aren't going to
Yeah.
show up.
Yes. I mean, and here's the thing. It's a small world. I mean, like, we think it's this really big world and things like that, but I mean, like, if I'm 4 hours away and I work from home, I am homeschooling my kids next year. If it gets to the point where, like, hey, I need help, and you don't have the, because, like, I'm very fortunate. I have a really good, strong family support system. I have my in-laws are really great. They will come at any time I need it. My parents are pretty great. Like, they'll make things work if I absolutely need their help. And so, but I know not everybody has that. And I know that, like, I know that for me, I can call my mother-in-law and say, "Hey, Jeremy's going to be in the field next week or in 2 weeks. I need extra hands because of whatever the reason." If she can be there, she's going to be there. And if she isn't, then I usually just kind of go down the line of who else can assist me during that time frame. But I also know in the back of my head that, like, I also know that if I can't find that support, then I'm gonna have to make that sacrifice of not doing that trip if it's a trip that I need assistance with, or just having to suck it up and doing it with the kids and just pray that they're gonna be big angels. Like, it's just the way the the life is because I cannot count on my husband being there at any given time. Like, anytime I've had a work trip or anything like that, like, it has been me who has had to make all the arrangements to determine, like, am I taking the kids somewhere? Are they coming with me? If they're coming with me, what am I going to do with them during this and this? And so I think it's just the unfortunate part of not having that counterpart. But I do know that, like, thankfully I can call Sabrina, or I can call Courtney, or I can call Laura, or I can call anyone and just be like, "I need to vent about this. Like, I'm so angry and I want to stew in my anger." And they're like, "Get it out, girl." And that's the type of support you need. You need people who are going to be there. I mean, we haven't seen each other in person in what, two,
like almost 3 years probably.
It's
but I
been
know that I
like
can be like,
six for
I
us.
need someone to talk to. Like, so it is what it is. And I think that just, it really sucks that sometimes you're going to have the most amazing support system, and then sometimes you're going to feel so lonely. But here's the deal. This is why we started Deployed Love. This is why we have Deployed Love. This is why we try to have coordinators at installations who are doing social events and who are doing things to provide community, because we know that this life can be really lonely. And we know that there are going to be times where people don't have that community. And again, I'm going to be upfront, but, like, at least connect with your SFRG or whatever it is, key spouse, whatever it is. You don't have to be friends with them. But if you have at least one person where you can say, hey, I am struggling with this. Do you have information to help me? They're going to tell. They're going to help you. And like I said, I always say have a friend outside of your unit, because if you're not comfortable talking about those things within your unit, for whatever reason, if it's marital, whatever, you can find someone, or like I said, we don't have all the answers, but we are willing to help you guys find the support and resources that you need. So even if you guys are just messaging us here at Ruck Up Buttercup page or over at Deploy Love, or you're connecting with one of the coordinators, our hope and goal as an organization is to help provide you guys with some sort of community, some sort of a safe space for you guys to
Yeah, and I
have.
think a lot of people don't realize really what FRG can do, or those family groups, because though you're thinking, oh, well, I don't want to deal with that spouse. Okay, but your husband's deployed and your grass is super long. Your baby's sick. You just called. There are people on Rear D. There are people that are just in other units that will come out and help.
If you called me as your FRG leader and say, Ashley, I need help, I've got 20 soldiers who are sitting at that bay right there doing absolutely nothing because they are on profile or whatever the case may be, or they came in after deployment. Someone will come mow your lawn.
They will.
And they're going to be happy to
deal
do
with
it.
the spouse that's in charge. You don't like, it's not going to be them that comes over to help, most likely, for situations like that. But they have the connections to get you help.
To get it done.
Yeah. And here's the deal, y'all. There's a chain of command inside the FRG. Like, if you feel like you can't talk to your immediate FRG leader, so like say for your company level, there's a battalion level FRG representative that you can reach out to. If you go to those deployment briefs and things like that, they're going to have that information for you. If you feel not comfortable talking to that one, ask another FRG leader. Just say, hey, I have not had a good experience with this person. Can you please help me? And I get it. There are some bad apples. There's bad apples in everything that you are going to encounter. Don't let your one-time experience or maybe two times experience defect you from reaching out and finding what you need, because it's out there. Like, we've been doing the podcast for 5 years now, and we are still learning every time we get on the call with somebody, that there's stuff out there that we didn't know. And we're all seasoned spouses. Like, we've been around the block a time or two. Like, but we are okay saying, like, we don't know everything. We are learning just like you guys are. And that's the whole point of our podcast. The whole point of our organization is to continue to learn, continue to do all the things. So we have 2 more myths. Let's do this one first, because I think the last one is going to be one of our hottest topics. So the next myth is every homecoming is magical and perfect. Reintegration is hard, period. It is hard. And it's such a false narrative to say that it is going to be beautiful and magical, because it's not always the case. Depending on deployment, what happens on that deployment, how long they were gone, all things play a role. And I think we talked about this so much. Grace is the biggest thing that you can have during this time period. Grace with yourself, grace with your service member. There's just so much. I mean, your spouse is coming in, say it's a year-long deployment. You have been primary parent for an entire year. You have new systems in place. You have new ways of how you're disciplined. You have new schedules and all this other kind of stuff. And they're coming in and trying to step right back into what they were in, like they left. And it's not going to be a smooth transition.
Sometimes they come home on emergency leave. Yeah. And then stay, because that happened to me when we were in Germany. My ex-husband had to come home on emergency leave because I had a fight with gravity and severely lost. And
I love the way she explains her, like,
I went full painting goat.
Oh. And Laura likes to be painting goats.
Yeah. I got in a fight with a marble countertop and a marble floor in a foreign country that they didn't have a translator at the time, and I had to wait 3 days in a hospital for somebody in the neurology department to speak fluent English and not use Google Translate. And I was stuck not at the Army, like I wasn't at the base. We were at Edelweiss. So we
Mm-hmm.
weren't even near the military base, which is why they didn't have
Which is blowing
translators.
my mind because like English is a pretty common language in Germany. But
Yeah, it was just hard because I had a brain injury, so my brain wasn't working,
correctly.
and it was just a hot mess. And so I had to have somebody from the base, I couldn't drive, come with somebody else to drive my car back to base and get me seen at a hospital there. And then they had my husband, or my ex-husband at the time, of course he was deployed, so we had to get him back because I couldn't drive. I was in the hospital. I had an infant. My mother, thank God, was visiting from America so she could stay with Alex. But I mean, she hadn't had a kid in 50 plus years. So yeah, it was not beautiful and
it's
amazing
different every
homecoming.
single time. And it takes such a long, I mean, and here's the thing. Every reintegration, every single one is going to be different. It will never be the same, y'all. It will never be the same. I mean, our last homecoming was at 3 a.m. in the morning.
I was gonna say, if you just look at the actual time of the homecoming, like this actual homecoming itself, that isn't going to be picture perfect. Like everybody sees all these videos and you think of it, but it's like, no, there's 500 people in a field. How do you even find
They're
yourself?
tired, you're tired, the kids are tired. Do you bring
And
the
the
kids?
time changed 5 times.
Yeah, everybody's exhausted. It's always stressful. It's loud. Like it's not what you think it is.
It isn't. And you know, and then it's not like, hey, gets off the bus and gets to come home. Sorry, girl. Like if this is your first time, you know, homecoming, that's not how it happens. They get to say hi and then they get to go back to work for an hour or two, depending on how quickly they are going to move their little booties to turn in all their equipment, because that has to happen before they are released. And so it really
well, and sometimes that happens before the homecoming ceremony. So in Hawaii, so then they're like, you need to be here at this time. This is when they land, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, but we're going to do the equipment first. And so then you're sitting there for like 3 hours waiting for them to be done. And you're like,
it's always been afterward. All of the homecomings we've ever done, and so we've done 4, have been they've marched in with full gear, they've done their little ceremony, and then they have to go load on buses, go back to their company, turn everything in, and then we can pick them up. You know, get the barracks open for the single soldiers, and depending on the rank and things like that, your service member may be there longer because they have to make sure that their soldiers are all taken care of. And then by the end of the day, they're exhausted. They just want to come home and sleep. They don't want to come home and have sexy time or whatever it may be. Like they just want to sleep at the same time. So just grace. Like grace is the biggest thing. Like have things, set boundaries, y'all. Set boundaries. It's okay. It is okay to tell your service members' parents no, your parents know, anybody, hey, he gets home at this time, or don't even tell him, hey, they get home at this time. He will not be able to spend time with you. It is better for you to come on the weekend, because most of the time our service members get a couple 4-day weekends when they get home. They, you know, they do have a little bit of time. Say, hey, if you really truly want to spend time with your son, come on these dates. He will not be able to have you like, you know, go to dinner immediately afterwards. Say like, you know, they get in at noon. Like he will have to go to work. And it's okay to have those conversations, and it is okay to set those boundaries. I get that people want to be there when they get off the plane and everything like that. And that is a conversation that the service member can have with those families. Don't let it put it on you either. I think that's also like, if you don't want that on you, your service member has enough time to communicate that with their family before coming home, saying, hey, we are not going to call you when I'm coming home. I want it to just be my wife and my kids. When we get the date of when my first long weekend will be, that's when we'll tell you can come down. But those have to be conversations that happen individually. Jeremy's parents came for his first homecoming, and that was great. And I think his first two, but we were all lived in Fayetteville, so it wasn't a big deal. Like they went home, they gave us the space, and then we all kind of met up later in the week. The last two deployments, they came a couple, like 2 weeks afterwards for a weekend, and that worked out really, really well for our family. But I feel like people, especially spouses, don't feel like they get to have a say.
And I think
And
that I wish that FRGs taught them that there doesn't have to be a big homecoming and that you need to actually prepare for that kind of thing for later, because I think that it's not only that people are tired, but the reintegration, like we were saying, isn't always easy. It's hard, and there's fighting, and there's so much stress that comes with just trying to figure out where you fit as a family anymore, that who wants to be having those arguments that they're going to happen, because PTSD, exhaustion, you're gonna
all of
have
it's gonna
snapping at each other. That's just inevitable. And who wants to be doing that when their family's sitting in the next room over and you're like just trying to fight under your breath? And like, you need 2 weeks, at
well,
least two
and
weeks to kind of just like process life.
don't set expectations either. I mean, and I was always horrible. Like my expectations were, as soon as you came home, you were going to spend time with me, or we were going to go do all these things together, or you were going to come right back in with the kids. And in reality, that just doesn't work. In reality, they are processing all the things, and it just depends on what they experience too. I mean, I remember after Jeremy's second deployment, he came home, and that reintegration was very difficult for us. Like, it was like he didn't want, like, I felt like he didn't want to spend time with me. He only wanted to spend time with people he had been spending an entire year with. And I was getting so angry with him. And it came down, we weren't communicating, like we weren't expressing like our needs during that time frame. So that's number one issue. But number two, I was just like, you've been gone for an entire year. And this is when they were doing like 12 plus like month deployments. And I was like, you literally have saw this person all day at work, and you spent an entire year being like bunk mates. Like, why are you still like I would get to the point where I was like, you would rather spend time with your work husband, your work wife, than you would want to spend, like, it wasn't a pretty reintegration. And it just came down that they had a really rough deployment, and they were still working through things, and they were still processing, and Jeremy felt like he couldn't like communicate those things to me and things like that. And so it all came down to communication.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to do before they get home, and express like, what do you need when you get home? Do you want to go to dinner? No? Okay, cool. We'll stay home. Like, that's what I did with Jeremy the last time. I was like, hey, like, do you want to go out to dinner the night you get home? Do you want your family to come down? Do you want to just stay home for a few days? Like, what do you want? And it came out like, let's stay home for a few days. And then I really want to go to our favorite pizza place. And I was like, cool. Like, that's exactly what we'll do. And I think asking what they want and not what you want, even though you may feel like your feelings deserve a valid like space, there's going to have to be kind of that like balance of what is going to happen for the first couple of days. And then communication, it's so important. So important through any of these transitional periods.
When Steven came home from that's my late husband, when he came home from his deployment, I wasn't there. I was still in OSIT. I was still in training, and they weren't letting me go for that. I didn't even ask because I already knew that answer. And then he was in the process when I graduated that he couldn't come see me graduate because they couldn't leave the immediate area, and I was at Fort Leonard Wood. So he missed my graduation. So it's like,
don't sweat the small stuff. Like, just,
have your own.
There's going to be things that are out of your control that you are not going to be able to make work. And that could be they're arriving at 3 a.m. and you have 3 toddlers at home and you have no support system. It may come down to that you do not get to go and be there when they step off the bus. If that's a communication that you guys have discussed, don't let anyone make you feel bad about it, because there's going to be that. I mean, other than the choice of keeping those kids up all night long and making your life a living nightmare, there are going to be things that you're going to have to do that may not fit the narrative of being a military spouse. And that is okay, as long as you are having that communication with your partner and you and your partner are in agreement. And those are the only two individual opinions that matter.
I'm
Who?
really just setting realistic expectations. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just have dreamy expectations of everything. That's just not, if you've been part of the military for anything, any amount of time, it's never going to be the way you want it to be.
It's
It's
not.
never going to look like the TikTok
I mean,
video that.
here's the deal. You may have that magical experience. I mean, I'm not saying like my first homecoming with Jeremy was great. Like I loved it. We had the signs. We had my friend Kim was there. She took photos. Like I had that beautiful homecoming experience. It was also at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. You know, it was not too hot. Like it was good. It was nice. It was wonderful. But it wasn't. That's not gonna like. But all the other ones were chaotic.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. And here goes into our next myth, because and this one's probably going to make us all go, ugh. You knew what you signed up for. No one truly knows what they signed up for you. Even as someone who grew up in the military, I did not have the full expectations or knowledge of what military life was going to be like. And I lived it. I've lived it for 36 plus years. It is different. Every military journey is different.
It changes year to year too.
Every command changes your experience. Every MOS is a different experience. Every installation is a different experience. You could go to an installation and hate it and then go back and absolutely love it. It is different no matter what. It is different depending on what schools your service member goes to and how that affects his career.
And if you have kids at this time, but not at this time, it changes.
Growing up as a military kid, I absolutely did not like it. Okay. I moved all the time. I went to a different high school, and not even a different high school in the same state. It was Germany, and then Texas, and then Germany, and then North Carolina. I didn't like it. And I swore up and down I would never marry a service member. Obviously, 20 years later, that did not actually happen. But my kids love it. My kids find moving thrilling. They're like, I cannot wait to go experience this, and I can't wait to go do this. Now, granted, they're young. They don't understand the bonds that we make as human beings with friends and stuff like that. They just know that they can make friends anywhere. And that's just something I've instilled into them because I know what it was like to be a military kid. But you don't understand, like, growing up military and then being a military spouse is very different. It's very different. There are different things that I was like, oh, being a primary parent, a solo parent, is not something that I actually signed up for and that I knew I was going to have to do, but I didn't realize I would still have to do it with my service member home. Like, I did not expect that I still would be responsible for going to all the doctor's appointments and all the school events and all the extracurricular. Like, I was the one that I had to have it on my calendar, because if it wasn't on mine, it probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, people say that, but it's like life in general. Like, you don't know what you sign up for. You go to college, you're not getting that same job, most likely. I mean, half of us have degrees that we don't use this way that they should be used, right? Like, they're used because they go on our resume and we need to have a bachelor's degree or whatever. But, like, nobody knows what they're signing for anything in life. Like, and why would you say the same thing for military? Like, life, who knows? I mean, you talk about, like, even Laura at the Gold Star. Do you think she knew when she signed up, got married, that that's where her life was headed? I mean, no effing way. There's just no.
But it made me the sarcastic person I am today.
But did I expect to be in a community where it was such a, how do I want to word this? Because you have spouses who are amazing people, who strive to help other military spouses have a better life. And then you have military spouses who are just so bitter about what they've experienced that they just want to bring everybody else down with them. And I think that's what we get with the social media aspect of it, is that you can't take that negativity and just expect that that's going to be your lifestyle. It's not. Like, you have to kind of like adapt through trial of fire. Like, you have to adapt what's thrown at you in the best way. Like, we've talked about Murphy. We've talked about that geezer of a man who likes to show up unannounced anytime our service member is gone. And
even sometimes not gone.
Not gone. Like, I know. Like, I think we talked about this, like, because Jeremy for the last like 5 years has always been gone, like in the February, March timeframe, and then in the July and August timeframe. And every year it's like on the clock, something bad happens. And I'm just like, he's just so used to showing up that he just shows up all the time. And I've gotten to the point where like I'm like for this move, like we're buying a new house, y'all. And Jeremy leaves 30 days after we buy this house for an entire year. And I'm like, what is this gremlin gonna do?
I know, because you won't have maintenance to come help, but it's gonna be a whole other.
No, and like so like I've been so adamant about like, you know, like I know this roof is like an original roof from like 2011. So I was like, I need a second opinion. So we got a second opinion, and the second opinion was like, yeah, there's like maybe a year. So I was like, okay, they need to give us a credit because we're gonna have to replace this roof at some point. And I was like, and I'm not dealing with this by myself. So, but I'm just like, oh, let's just
always get the house inspection. Doesn't matter if it's a new house.
Yeah,
it blows my mind when I see TikTok videos. They're like, there's a window on the outside of my house here, and I don't know where it goes on the inside. It's like, didn't you have an inspect? Like, what do you mean you don't know what?
Like the new houses, they're like, but it's a new build. Yeah, those are the worst.
Yeah, and that was kind of like I didn't want to go because we live like in a newer build here, and I hate it because like it's just the construction is just not sound. So like I was okay with like, you know, all this other kind of stuff. So we, but like I know it's coming, and so I'm like, let's go. Like, what are you gonna throw at me? Because yeah, it's going to suck in the moment, but at the same time I'm going to be able to look back and just be like, look at me, I grew and I can handle anything that's thrown my way. And that's just kind of how you have to view military life. You have to take each scenario that's thrown at you, each backhand, like this was not what we expected. I mean, I feel like Jeremy's career is like a great example. Like Jeremy has been thrown so many like wrenches in his career line. Like he was put, you know, was getting ready to drop a warrant officer packet, like literally was walking into the office to turn in a warrant officer packet, and bam, you get recruiting duty that he couldn't get out of. Okay. Had to report to recruiting duty because we were CONUS 9 months before he actually went to school. So our recruiting time ended up being almost 4 years. And then went back to the line unit, did all this thing, and then bam, got slapped with another special duty assignment that does nothing for his career. And so, you know, and that just happens. Like there's some people who never get a special duty assignment ever, and they get through their career so quickly and so fast. Like they move up the ranks really quickly because they don't have anything kind of like stuck in their way. And, you know, we've just kind of taken it like, okay, let's go. Like, let's see what this life is going to be like. And you just have to, like, because if you don't, you're going to be miserable and you're going to just not like it. And I really, truly do not like the myth where people knew what you're sent for. If you tell that to a military spouse, because it's different. Like, and I've seen so many military spouses, like I saw a girl the other day who was just like, no, I did not know what I was signing up for because we were already married and had kids before he even went into the service. No clue what this life was going to be like. Had no like background or anything about what it was like. Even till this day, like I tell my mom will say something and she's like, I'm like, I can't do that. I was like, do you not remember being a military spouse? Like it's changed through the years too. Like I feel things that we deal with now, we didn't necessarily have to deal with a couple years ago or vice versa. So like,
I say all the time that I was happy. Like it sucked that Steven passed away, but thank God I didn't have to find out on Facebook.
Yeah.
That is
like, first off, why do people feel the need to share everything? Like, I get that, like, you know, there's people out there who genuinely want to help and be like, you know, hey, like, we had a service member who had, you know, whatever, like, how can we support her? Like, I'm doing a meal train thing. That's one thing, but, like,
families are finding out that family members are dying before the military or the police can even go.
Well, and I think that's a reality. That is 100% a reality of today military spouse. Like, you know, we see everyone talking about like OBSEC. I'm sorry, y'all. OBSEC has gone out the window for so many reasons. Like when, you know, when Jeremy deployed to both the Iraq embassy being attacked and to Afghanistan during the evacuations, there was no OPSEC because the news was already telling everybody what was happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just going to be our new normal. And so from a military spouses like ourselves who are very veteran, who have gone through where like redeployments and deployments were canceled because a spouse announced it online before they left, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But I still think it is important not to share that information, not to share with the world that your service member is gone, or that you're home alone or anything like that, especially if you don't have your social medias locked down. Like, if you have your social medias locked down and it's just family, I think it's okay to say, hey, like, Jeremy left Tuesday, for deployment, just letting family know. Like, I think that's one thing. But like, if it's not locked down and you are very open in public about your place and you don't have like the geotagging and everything else turned off, like, it could be an issue. And I hope people take that seriously because it is something that is going to be, I think, a big issue coming forward, is attacks, whether it's hacking into personal accounts or things like that. I do think that that's going to be an issue coming more prevalent in the future.
But it's like, we'll see, because there's wrecks daily here. And
Yeah.
I can tell you the make, model, and everything about the person just by the pictures and the videos and the comment section of whoever passed it first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've seen several times that family members in the comments have seen things that they probably didn't want to see just because somebody wanted to know about the wreck.
So I'm probably going to get some backlash on this because I feel like there's a catch-22 on this one. I think now that I feel like this is something that I don't feel is as prevalent when you can share location and stuff now through phones and stuff. But there's been times where, like, I thought something happened to Jeremy because I hadn't heard from him in a while. He wasn't home yet, things like that. And then I hear that there's a wreck. And then I'm just like, oh, I hope that's not him, because like, you never know how they're going to communicate or contact you, things like that. So I feel like with people posting wrecks and stuff like that, like, that's a horrible way to find out. But at the same time, like, if that wreck happened 2 hours ago and I still hadn't been contacted yet, I would want to know in any way possible. But I think that's just depending on people in general. Like, I think that, like, for me, I would rather know as soon as possible. And that's no, in terms of like 4 soldiers were killed in unit Bravo 2504, whatever, that's a no. Like, if that came down, like, service member or spouse and said, hey, before it went all black or whatever, I feel like that's a very different scenario. But that's just my personal opinion on it, because like, I do know that it can take a really, really long time to contact military, or not military, but it could take a really long time to contact families in like terms of like an accident. Like, and if, say that person was alive at that accident at first, but then like 4 hours later passed away, and you didn't get that notification until hour 5, but if you had saw that accident posted at hour 1, you could have had that opportunity to say goodbye. So I feel like it's a very muddly area. I think there should be grace about it, but I also think that, I don't know, it's one of those weird areas where I think each person's going to have a very, very different opinion on.
Yeah. And so, like, thinking back to when Stephen passed away, there were certain notification times. I'm sure that's still the protocol now. They don't do notifications during certain hours, whatever. When people started going radio silent, because the time frame of you can't notify spouses or direct family members between this hour and this hour, when that hour hit and it went radio silent and I got no answers from my command, his command, MPs that I knew, the chaplain, everybody, at 6 a.m. I knew I was getting a knock at my door. And it happened. But I had the unfortunate knowledge that I was an MP and I knew how procedures worked.
And
Whereas,
not everyone knows that. Like, unless
yeah,
you've gone and done like the courses and stuff like that, which, you know, you can go take those courses and not actually volunteer. And I kind of highly encourage people to do that so they have an idea of what those positions are, the care team, FRD, things like that. Like, it's free to do. Sometimes they're online, sometimes they're in person, but it
it didn't
most
help
of
those
them,
7 hours go by
it,
any faster.
it
That's for
didn't.
sure.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, this is going to be, you know, every person's going to be different, and you can kind of communicate that with your partner of, like, you know, you're going on a deployment. This is what I'm going to need. Like, if something were to happen to me, this is what I need. And they can have that like written into their like whatever the paperwork's called, on like, hey, like, you know, my, you know, I tell my spouse first, or hey, I would like for you to tell my dad first, so my dad can be there to tell my spouse, or however you can communicate that, and they can have that written in to the way that best fits that family need. You know, they can write in there like, you know, my spouse, I have small kids, like I would like to have the care team, things like that. So, and that's the thing. Not every installation or not every unit has a care team. I highly encourage it that if you have the capacity to volunteer for that in some way. I mean, it could just be as coming in and help organizing, um, cleaning up the rooms or anything like that. So there's a lot of things that spouses can do to help other spouses during this time of needs, and at the same time also shut people down. Like, shut the people who are being like just nasty online. And again, that's just a social media thing. Like, if that's something that really plays a role in your mental health, stay off the spousal pages. I rarely go on the spouse pages anymore because I just get so angry at how some spouses treat other spouses. I think I am only on two that I actually enjoy. Um and it's unnecessary, and it's not kind, and it's not nice to put down other people just because you can. It's life. I get it. It's hard. We've all gone through things. We've all probably come from not great backgrounds. That's just the life of military families. It's why a lot of our soldiers join, because they have no other option of anything else to do. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a community and a found family, because that's what's really great about the military is you can find that found family. And, you know, the amount of kids that call me Aunt Ashley is insane. Am I their biological aunt? Nope,
My
not
kids
at
are
all.
very
But
confused
I
about
will
that
love
right
them.
now.
Huh?
They're like, but what about Aunt Erica? What about
I
Aunt?
know.
I'm like, well, those people
Yeah.
aren't your aunts, because they're trying
Yeah.
to like figure out what their family actually looks
Mhm.
like, and I'm like,
It is so,
well,
and every family's different, because like I grew up that way. Like, I grew up like my mom's friends being like my aunts. Like, and I knew that they weren't my aunts. Like, I knew that they weren't like biological my aunts, but I call them Aunt London, Aunt Lisa. Like, I grew up doing that. And Jeremy gets so mad at me. He's like, wait, is this like really your aunt? And I'm like, no. He's like, then why do you do that? Because he didn't grow up doing that. But that's something I did. And I'm like, and I do that with my kids too. Like, I'm like, Aunt Granny, like, you know, Aunt Kim. And so it's so funny because he gets so mad at me. And I'm like, look, like, it's a found family thing. Like, you may not need that, but we need that. Like, we need to have that like connection, because like, you know, we don't get to go home for all the holidays. You know, thankfully, like, again, we are very, very blessed that our in-laws are very, very, or my in-laws are very great. Like, we either go to them or they come to us. It's a little bit different now that my sister-in-law has babies, so we'll see how that goes this year. But it is what it is, y'all. And that's just kind of like how you have to take military life, day by day, season by season, chapter by chapter, and just do the very best, because you're doing the very best that you can do. And that's all that matters, is that you and your spouse are on the same team. You communicate what your wants and their wants are, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Don't let someone else sway your decision to be a stay-at-home mama, or to work outside the home and make you feel bad about working and not staying at home with your kids. Like, don't let anyone feel bad, because you have to do what's best for your unit, and that's all that matters.
yeah.
So let's end this with since we kind of talked about some myths, what is something that you would tell, if you could give yourself your baby Milspo self piece of advice starting out, what would you give yourself?
Learn how to communicate.
Mm-hmm. I think that was
Like,
important.
a lot more communication could have been done in the first few years of our marriage, for sure.
Yeah, I like that one. I would have to agree with that one. I say learn how to communicate, and then have grace with yourself and grace with your service member, that because everything's not going to be that picture perfect moment. You are in a relationship that is very demanding in mental health and physical health, that if you don't take the amount of time to reconnect with yourself and with your spouse, communicate, it will be a very difficult road to travel down. And I wish I had given myself that when we were younger, because I do think that we would be in a very different spot. I'm not saying that our relationship and marriage is not great, but like I said, we are continuously growing. We are continuously learning new things about each other. Our communication style has completely changed since we were babies. I mean, we got married at 20 and 21. We are now 36 and 37, about to be 38, 37. So we have just grown individually as people, and our tastes have changed, our hobbies have changed. And so it's kind of respecting that and the boundaries that can be changed, and just having that open communication is so important. What about you, Laura?
It's
Laura's
hard
like, I have to
because
think
y'all
about
are
this.
with the same spouse and I'm not. Because my time as a baby spouse got cut very short.
I think, like, in terms of, like, just maybe your baby self, like, giving yourself, like, what piece of advice, if you could go back and look at anything about younger
Ask
self,
for help.
ask for help. Thank you. I think that's so important. You're not alone. You're not alone. And like, I think we've said it so many times here in this episode.
Because when I was a baby spouse, I was the youngest spouse by, I think it was 7 years.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, well, I can't ask because they're not in the same. Yeah. So
find you a spouse. And like I said, we're here.
I had a whole bunch of mamas, though. It was nice.
Exactly what I had.
I had a whole bunch of moms that took care of me. Yeah.
I think I've always had that mama, like, mentality. Like, even as a young baby spouse, I was always that, like, come under my wing, I'll take care of you type of, like, mentality. And ask for help. Ask for, you're gonna know who to ask. Like, you're gonna know who are those, like, I wear my husband ink, I can't talk to you type of people. You're gonna know.
Yeah.
But you're also going to know that, like, there are other people out there that can help you. And then again, we are here for you guys. Like, if you are just like, man, I need someone to talk to, we're going to be starting hopefully some more programs in our Hearts Connect group here soon, where we can do more virtual events over on Deployed Love. You can reach out to coordinators. You can reach out to any of us on here. We'll be more than happy to chat with you. If you guys have ideas of things that, hey, like, I think this would be fantastic, you want to volunteer, you want to do whatever you want to do, reach out to us, because we, as military spouses, know exactly what you're going through. There are scenarios that we've never experienced, and we'll be more than happy to help you find someone who can support you on that journey.
Yeah.
That was a long episode, y'all. Hope you guys stuck around and listened. And if you guys have any input on any of those myths versus reality, please leave those in the comments. I'm kind of excited. Or if you have other myths that we should talk about, put it in the comments, because I would be very interested to see what other people are viewing. There are so many more. That was only 8 that we talked about today, and there are so many more. We could go down the pipeline about dependopotamuses, which we kind of talked about, but I think that's just kind of a thing that can be used as satire. It is what it is, but we are here for you guys. We are here to chat with you guys. We are here to learn and grow with you. And we hope you guys stick around for more episodes. Like Sabrina said earlier, we have a financial one coming up soon, and so much more. So reach out and let us know what your thoughts are. And Sabrina, do you have anything?
No, I'm just glad that we are still doing this, and it's fun. I hope that you guys, the community's grown a lot lately, but we want the interaction. So that's why we're kind of like talking to you at the end, like, please come comment and talk and join things, because we can continue to post on social media, but if nobody is there, then it, on our end, it's like, oh, well, I want the community too. We want you guys to be part
Yes.
of our community.
Yeah, because we're all going through the thick of it. I mean, I'm about to embark on a whole new journey that I have no experience with geobatching. So it's one of those things, like, we are growing alongside you guys, and we are learning and experiencing even as seasoned spouses. So don't take that to faint of heart, whether you are a spouse of 6 months, a year, 30. We are all growing, and we are all learning, and we are all experiencing same things but different things at the same time. So
yeah, we'll have everything in the show notes as usual, and we will talk to you guys the next episode. And as we like to say, Ruck Up Buttercup.
bye, everybody.